Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Propagandacast with me, Imperial Dane. And today we have for you a 1 versus 1 on Sturzdorf. Yes, indeed, it is Sturzdorf. I haven't seen that one in a bit of a while, but of course shall be interesting to see this map again, heavily industrialized, or well, at least somewhat moderately in the heavier end. Railways, barricades, and some victory points. Plenty of buildings, plenty of garrisoning. Of course, this can also create a lot of blind spots for some players to sneak through, and of course can make it a bit hard for some players to establish any sort of decent defensive line. As of course you can certainly find that, they're using these buildings to actually get close to your troops, to your positions, because of course units can't fire through buildings. Anyhow, so let's go have a look at our opponents. In the upper northern corner we have Swede of the Irish Armoured Guards making their way towards Eindhoven, probably right at the outskirts, and who shall oppose them? Some German kampfgruppe, Skozhizboz, whatever that means, led by the less known Major Skozhizboz, who shall be holding the outskirts and perhaps delaying the Irish Guards for long enough for some actual troops to arrive. And let's get to it. And in the meanwhile, regarding the bit of competition, there seems to have been some bit uncertainty as to some parts while I was discussing this with the cheese burglar while he was munching on some cheese he had burgled from somewhere else. You don't have to necessarily be the great artist and create something else. Screenshots as well, again, can also be used for the contest, just rather nice looking ones with some rather epic and inspiring scenes. And also, I don't believe that I mentioned it's a sort of 3-week thing. I don't think any more will do much, and any less will be a bit too little. Anyhow, so again, try to join the competition. You don't have to be the best, you just have to be bold, brave, and actually just give a shot. So let's see how that turns out, and let us return to the fighting. Wehrmacht quarters going up, and we are seeing a Schwimmwagen apparently putting up, one of the few Schwimmwagens left right near Eindhoven. And this British command truck is bashing through the walls, through the ruins, and setting up right here, it seems, at this medium munitions point, which of course also give a rather dominating view of this area. Of course it will also be rather exposed, so any nicely placed heavy machine guns could in fact end up suppressing anyone near that headquarters command truck, and so you have to be careful about placing your headquarters command truck too forwards, as you can of course end up being pinned in your own base and of course being unable to defend yourself. So that's rather the dangers of doing something like that. You can in fact be much more easily rushed by any sort of bold player. There we go, the Schwimmwagen Type 166 with a light machine gun. Slightly more expensive than a bike, but it also has a bit more health, and it can reverse and move faster through water. Albeit that's not going to make the major difference, since most maps don't really have much water at all. Others we are seeing Wehrmacht pioneers moving towards the east. Could be Ersatzpioneren, or well, people from the Reichsarbeitsdienst. Who knows? The forces at Eindhoven certainly were a bit more ad hoc, since there weren't really that much forces being moved in. Probably would mostly have been composed of Luftwaffe forces and other bits. And we are seeing an MG42 ready to set up watch, and looks like the Schwimmwagen will be caught out in the open by these infantry section troops. And there we go, backing away, slowly firing away as well at the British, doing a bit of damage but taking a bit more damage itself. And looks like it might be trying to pull back towards the pioneers for some swift emergency repairs. Looks like those British troops are quickly out of their territory and are quickly getting nervous, and so will probably slowly pull it back. MG42 setting up here in an advanced position. Further infantry sections coming out from the Irish Guards, apparently not deciding to rely on officers at all, having had enough of those chaps. There we go, infantry section getting suppressed out in the open. Not the best position though to be standing with an MG42. As you may notice, it is not in cover itself, and so can in fact become an easy target. And in some cases a heavy machine gun out in the open can in fact be killed by the team it's trying to suppress, rather than actually finish them off. So keep that in mind. You want to be careful with MG42s and not just place them out in the open. It's not an assured victory for you. In the meanwhile, we are seeing a lot of manpower being floated, apparently being a bit too caught up in the action, and now going for a sniper. He might want to consider also getting some infantry, some Volksgrenadiere to lead the charge, be a bit more mobile. And we are seeing a rather large infantry force, infantry section, and of course a lot of British infantry sections. And we are finally seeing a lieutenant apparently being marched about to actually seize territory behind the forward British positions. Perhaps a bit late. In fact, not a lot of fuel for the British, although of course this point will be a bit of a help. And what are we seeing? A recon section and a rather nervous infantry section moving forwards. Schwimmwagen being repaired, MG42 reinforced, and sniper also getting ready. And we're also seeing the skirmish phase being reached. So we're probably seeing a Creek barracks and perhaps some grenadiers to actually act as the infantry, opting for something slightly a bit more tough. Not unusual, in fact, with this patch to actually see more Wehrmacht players just opt for very little support and then going straight for the grenadiers, since they are a lot more tougher and a lot more dangerous. And there we go again, placing the MG42 right out in the middle of everything. Something you want to avoid. And looks like this infantry section is taking quite a bit of fire. Schwimmwagen, sniper, and MG42, but the MG42 is in a rather perilous situation. Bren guns blasting away from a small shell crater, certainly making it a bit harder to hit, but there we go. Infantry section member down, and a Bren gun is dropped. This last chap will have to get out of there before all is lost. And recon section moving in from the rear. Oh my goodness, clearing out the MG42 and sniping the sniper. That was a absolutely horrific loss. Getting some Volksgrenadiers to quickly perhaps retake this MG42. And what is this? Setting up a Vickers machine gun emplacement now that the German forces have been forced away. Good job securing this area, of course. Then again, if the German player is a bit clever, he can sneak about here and flank this position, but we shall have to see how that goes for the Major or Major Skozhizboz, while Major Swede of the Irish Guards is certainly digging in a bit. Not a bad idea. Volksgrenadiers moving ahead, not taking the MG42 though, instead going straight for that Bren light machine gun. Will certainly boost their firepower a bit. So that's certainly going to be helpful there. We are seeing pioneers with flamethrowers also moving about, reconnecting territory. Albeit it does look right there is a very tenuous hold giving them access to this high yield fuel point. So that's certainly going to minimize the loss from this low point not being in their hands. And we are seeing a pack being prepared as well. Not a bad assumption, assuming of course that your opponent will be going straight for armor in such matters. And we're also seeing a mortar emplacement rather heavily digging in here, opting for a rather strong position right here. Not taking any of the victory points though. Whereas Skozhizboz does have one, which is slowly taking in his advantage. But of course, you don't necessarily have to go for all victory points at the start. But at the same time, every little bit counts, and it can in fact sometimes be the thing that saves you. And we are seeing an infantry section going about here, not much resisting it. Not sure why the Schwimmwagen is not staying behind to support these Volksgrenadiers and pioneers. Bren gun firing away at its former owners, cutting one down, infantry section member. Looks like the other chaps are moving about out in the open. That's a really bad move, in fact, taking quite heavy losses. Pioneers will have to retreat though, and for some reason the recon section is also retreating. Another Brit goes down on the retreat. Nice job from the Volksgrenadiers, and British are continuing to go for all of those munitions point, apparently opting for something that rather is heavy on munitions, perhaps a lot of artillery, perhaps mines, perhaps Piats, perhaps rifle grenades, and this lieutenant is awfully on his own. If the Schwimmwagen catches him now, it certainly could be the end of this young fellow. And we are also seeing some grenadiers being prepared, certainly going to provide some heavier infantry assets, in fact any at all, since he does barely have anything. Only one Volksgrenadier team. There we go, Schwimmwagen pounces upon the lieutenant, forcing the lieutenant into a swift run. But he does manage to get away, as apparently the Schwimmwagen has other things to do. Perhaps having a bit of fun with those spear steins in the back. And pack slowly inching forwards. Grenadiers also ready, and not sure what those pioneers will be up to. They will perhaps need a medic pack to actually heal them. At the same time, we are seeing the assault phase being researched. Panzerschrecks being equipped rather heavily on the armor bits, and we are instead seeing a Bren carrier. Certainly not bad. and having it heavily equipped will certainly increase its firepower. In fact, almost, yes, it cuts down the pioneer team rather swiftly, leaving behind only a Volksgrenadier and a Schwimmwagen behind enemy lines. This could easily turn up very ugly, as oh dear, numerous Bren guns, in fact, plus a Vickers equipped on the Bren carrier, which of course has its own Bren guns. So Brens for everyone, except, oh, the Germans in fact also have Bren guns, of course. But Volksgrenadiers will have to get out there, and they will be facing a terrible gauntlet of heavy light machine gun fire and a bit of medium machine gun fire. And Panzerschreck equipped Grenadiers charge again, but are coming under heavy mortar fire. The mortar, though, seemingly having taken up positions to blast this building, allowing the Grenadiers to get much closer rather swiftly. Dual Panzerschrecks, a tank buster team, apparently relying on the only few veteran troops at the moment to do this. Can of course be used to quickly clear up mortar emplacement, but at the same time it does of course give an increased chance of that team being wiped out. And of course, oh yeah, you're suddenly short of 150 munitions, and your opponent might even grab a Panzerschreck, and apparently remaining to perhaps also try and knock out the Vickers machine gun emplacement. But Bren carrier and Bren sections moving into the rescue. Grenadiers, oh dear, they're standing out in the open. Last thing you want to do against all that light machine gun fire. General rule of thumb, unless it's an LMG-42, don't stand out in the open. And one Grenadier is caught out while running backwards, not good. We are seeing the Sturm Armory, and we are also seeing a reconnaissance section going up against the venerable Schwimmwagen. Schwimmwagen not looking too good, we'll have to retreat for repairs. Get out there, Schwimmwagen. You don't want to die a hero for the fatherland without doing anything. Oh dear, engine is damaged. The Schwimmwagen won't be making it out of there, and there we go, blown apart. A most tragic loss. Meanwhile, we are seeing fresh Bren gun sections moving out, and a 17 pounder being set up, apparently expecting some sort of armored assault. Of course, could be expected if he goes for a Sturk 4, but no, he goes for the Nebelwerfer, ready to bombard those positions. We are seeing further Grenadiers being marched out. Not a lot of infantry still. I'm not entirely keen on that. Again, rather than general rule of thumb, get at least 3 teams of infantry at all times, unless of course you're extremely bold. But again, particularly not with one of those teams. It's only a Volksgrenadier team. And why isn't he recruiting that MG42? Could certainly do a lot against all those British infantrymen. And we are seeing barbed wire being laid down right in front of this machine gun emplacement. Certainly going to make it a bit harder to just rush it. So that's not entirely a bad idea. Volksgrenadiers going straight for the reconnaissance section, firing away with a Bren gun, but are going to be caught right outside. Not taking up cover behind that Schwimmwagen, which is wrecked. Instead pulling back and taking this point instead. But oh dear, Bren carrier is on the move with the Vickers. There we go, firing away. Volksgrenadiers are standing in a slightly unfortunate situation. We'll have to retreat. Firing back, perhaps firing off a Panzerfaust. Yes, there we go. And the Irish Guards have lost a Bren carrier. But Volksgrenadiers are taking quite heavy losses, are barely down to 2 men with very low health.